Another loud engine ruins this video. Goodbye, sir. Good day. Hi guys, my name is Sal. I make videos whenever I feel like it, and today I honestly, for the first time in a long while, feel like a normal human being again. What defines as normal is obviously constructed, so I have to elaborate on that. But basically this is sort of the first day in, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks where I actually feel alive when I wake up. I feel awake, I feel ready for the day, I feel like I'm gonna be productive, like I'm gonna do things. I have been going through some things with my university. I mentioned in my previous video, my week in my life video, where I explained that I wasn't really feeling satisfied with what I was studying, and that I was bringing it up with the officials or the coordinators of the program, and I feel like I've finally closed that chapter in my life. It sounds ridiculous, and I will explain why I think it sounds ridiculous. Mostly, number one, because of how much of a privilege it is to be going to university, and how much of a privilege it is to be going to university in Western Europe. It's not a mainstream career prospect, and basically the process was very rocky, and it took a huge toll on my mental health. It took a huge toll on my energy levels and my focus. I honestly was sitting with the same amount of anxiety that I had back in the first year of university, and I had not experienced that in a very long time. I had gone a full, I don't know, year and a half maybe without going through emotions like that and going through anxiety that intense, which to me is also ridiculous because my intention was to help the program, and instead I went through a less than pleasant experience, we can say. But basically, I don't know, I just kind of want to sit down and just talk. I don't know if people find this interesting, I don't know if people will watch it, but I feel like it's just important to document and to get it out there, because I have worked very, very hard to get where I am. I have put a lot of hope into where I am today. You can probably see this in my orientation week video, where I was devastated by the cultural appropriation incident, which now I think cultural appropriation is less so the correct term, and maybe more just like cultural insensitivity, cultural rudeness, cultural offensive-ness. I think that is more appropriate to call it. Until now, I feel the same about Dutch culture. A lot of hate came into that video. I don't even know how that reached so many conservative Dutch people, because it was marketed towards like the university student viewers, audiences, but so many, I assume, older Dutch people found that video and took it upon themselves to rant about how ungrateful I am as an international learning here and being in their country and yada yada yada. First of all, I'm Dutch. My mother is from here. Dutch was my first language. I lost it, sure, but it was my first language. I didn't like fully immerse myself in Dutch culture until I came here, 100%. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I felt more Dutch when I was in Indonesia. Like, no, I was an Indonesian person because that's where I grew up and that was the culture that I learned. But sorry, my neighbor is like pulling up in her car like right there. She's like 5 meters away from me. I don't really vlog in front of people. Okay, she's gone. Okay, my experience with Dutch culture I feel like needs to be talked about, because I have gone on social media platforms and I have talked about how I love how open the Dutch people are, and I love how direct the Dutch people are, and you know, they are more open-minded. And like, yes, compared to the Javanese culture that I was raised with, the Javanese society that I was surrounded by, where so many things are still a taboo, there are a lot of things wrong with the society that I grew up back home. And you know, it's hard because I feel like cultures don't exist on their own. They don't exist in a vacuum. They don't exist in a bubble. I hate when people are like, this is this country, like you know, like we are now in Indonesia, so you have to respect the fact that like you can be put into jail if you are gay. Like that is not how the world works, right? We are all still people. We are all within the same woodworks of like emotions and feelings and worth and value. So I wanted to like officially go on a video, and not as like just a particular attack to my university, because I don't believe that this is something that I've only experienced at the institution. This is a thing that I've experienced since I've been here with many different people of many different racial backgrounds, of many different, you know, classes in the Netherlands, of many different ages and genders and etc. I'm here to talk about the fact that Dutch directness is just Dutch rudeness. Is that controversial to say? To me it isn't, because I have mentioned this to a lot of people who are both Dutch and international, and they all say, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we've been trying to say. So I don't feel like I'm alone in this. If I experience it and other people do as well, I feel like it's worth looking at. The Dutch pride ourselves of being open. We were the first country to legalize gay marriage. We are one of few countries that have legalized marijuana. A lot of the things that happen in this country are very progressive, but our views are still ridiculously close-minded, and we are so caught up in our ways. I see that in Indonesia, that stems out of like this respect that turns into fear. So we don't talk about it. It's one of those things. It's like, we know that all of these things exist. We know that it has affected us through generations. We know that we need to be fixing these things, but out of respect and to not be looked at as ridiculous, as shameful, as a disappointment to our elders, to our family names, to whoever we represent, we sort of silence everyone. Whereas the Dutch, it has what I've learned to call white innocence. There's a whole like research surrounding this. I will have links down below if you want to look more into this. White innocence is more where it's like it has been disregarded for so long in this society that people just don't think it exists anymore. That's why I think a lot of Dutch people say that they're not racist, that their society is not racist. That's why a lot of Dutch people do not know anything about their colonial past. That's why Dutch people do not really know anything about their past with slavery and trade. And those things are not far away, right? Like in Indonesia, you can clearly feel that the remnants of colonialism still exists. And in the Netherlands, it's the same thing. Just because the colonizers benefited from it doesn't mean the consequences no longer exist in its society. I see it so much in the microaggression. I see it so much in the blatant aggression that a lot of Dutch people just have the audacity to not even look at. In Indonesia, I feel like everybody was sort of sweeping it under the rug. They're like, don't talk about it. Don't let anyone hear you say it out loud. Whereas here it's like, systematic racism, don't know her. Structural racism, don't know her. Institutional racism, don't know her. I don't know, there are a lot of weird things that have happened since I've been here, like people just talking over other people. When somebody else is like speaking at a normal volume, people look at you a certain way. They make you feel uncomfortable for existing so that you just shut up and not exist anymore. If that makes sense. Like in Indonesia, they shame you for existing. So out of like insecurity and fear and like this ugly rotting thing, you hide yourself and you suppress yourself. I think suppression is probably the best way to explain that part of the culture. Whereas in the Netherlands, it's literally like they will look you dead in the eye until you just make it disappear, whatever it is that's making them uncomfortable. And it's kind of like mind-boggling, right? Because I am, again, in a bubble. I am surrounded by people who are pretty well educated, I would say, and yet I still experience this. I don't know where this is going, because I really didn't write a script about it at all. It's an angry rant towards the Dutch culture, but it's also not an angry rant like just towards the Dutch culture, I think is important to say. And yeah, like there are many things that are still wrong and embedded. Like everything that has to do with like Asian cuisine and Asian culture is Oriental. What's up with that? Huh. Orientalism, as thought and written by Edward Said, who is a cultural philosopher, is basically where we other another group of people. And that's how we validate all the bad things that we do to gain control over them, to take advantage over them, and to colonize them, you know, enslave them, rape them, murder them, etc. It's why wars exist, it's why colonialism exists, it's why racism exists, because we look at them as something else, something different, something removed. It's where it comes from. And the fact that stores and like foods and those things are still called Oriental are extremely weird to me. I went to a spa in my other vlog. I don't want to go into too much detail because my parents are afraid that I would get sued. But basically, if you go into like a place like that, you would know. It looks wild is all I can say. It's literally like, I like that, I'm just gonna mash them all together, spit it out, and turn it into some weird white utopia where old white Dutch people can go and nakedly enjoy saunas. When I was there, they had like Hindu statues. I have been to many Hindu and Buddhist temples, and I saw a lot of statues and I don't know the appropriate word, shrine, patong, that I saw growing up, and those places were sacred to us. You know, as a woman, I wasn't allowed to come in if I was on my period. I remember having to wait outside on a school trip. Those places are sacred and filled with culture and religion, and we don't mess with those things. If you're Japanese and you've heard of the Christ, like, you don't buy it somewhere randomly and then put it in your house because you know there would be like souls and spirits connected to it from the war and all those things. It's like, it's sacred, don't touch it, you know what I mean? And it's like, not even just, oh, because it's ours, it's literally because like you don't know what kind of things you're messing with, you don't know what kind of otherworldly plane that you are entering and trespassing, honey. And like to have that next to like the entrances to saunas, to have that next to Moroccan tilings, it makes no sense to me and is so culturally insensitive, offensive, and just like have you done any research at all? Like, have you talked to these people that you are inspired by? Because like, again, cultural appreciation, mwah, love it. I love it. Like, you know what I mean? And you can totally bring things from outside of your own country and share it with your people if you love it so much, but you cannot mess with things that like you find in temples and then like mash it with like things that you find in a bathroom and then present it to people who don't understand the cultural background of the things that they're consuming. You know? And for it to be so expensive, I don't know, I don't even want to go into that. But yeah, another point is Zwarte Piet. And if you go into my comment section and tell me again that it's tradition and that it's oh girl, no. First of all, look up how long Zwarte Piet has been around. If you don't know what Zwarte Piet is, look up Sinterklaas and Zwarte Piet. I'll spell it out for you here. It's offensive, it's blackface. People have tried to validate it by saying that it was the Spanish and that they're not really slaves. Honey, the Dutch owned and traded slaves. I don't know how you think that this can be separated, but sure. And the Netherlands has a pretty big black population. And for that to still be acceptable, it's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And like, I got many comments who were like, oh, you're just an American bringing your American politics into my country. Honey, I am a Dutch Indonesian person who sees that this is not okay. Colonialism has been around for much longer in your country, in this country, in my country, in your country, in our country, than Zwarte Piet. These are the uglier sides of the Netherlands that I haven't talked about yet, and I don't see a lot of people talk about. And for me, as a person who promotes my university, who promotes this country, who comes from this country and from another country as well, it's not okay. It's not okay for me to just show one side of the story. And that's why I'm bringing this up. Not because I want to attack, but because I feel like it's unfair. A lot of my audience is white. How do I know? Because a lot of you guys hit me up on Instagram, so I see where you're from, or, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm from this country. And then, like, again, that is not like, you know, don't have like white guilt on me suddenly, because if you haven't done anything offensive and if you're not a part of anything offensive, you are not offensive. You know, you are not offensive just because you're white. Like, that's not what my point is here. But I see that the majority of my audience is white, and so maybe they will come here and they will see like, ooh, that's not okay to have the Netherlands, you know, it's not okay for you guys to be doing that. Or maybe you don't even realize it because you are so far removed from this experience. Then I have to say, like, that's fine, but also please educate yourselves. Like, please look things up. Please understand that, like, a lot of these things aren't okay. Of course, you can ask questions to me, to other people, completely open for discussion. But I also know that there are many people who come from Southeast Asia, who come from the rest of Asia, who come from other countries where you will be the racial minority here, or you will be visibly different from the blonde and blue-eyed majority here. And when you are miles away from home, when you are alone, when you are struggling with the unbearable, sometimes, workload of university, and you are lonely, and you are tired, and you are hungry, and you are cold, and you have to, on top of that, be hyper aware of yourself as a racialized person for the first time, it's not fun. It's not fun. A lot of the times you come in and you think that you are just, you know, whatever you are, and that's the majority, and that's normal, and that has no negative connotations to it. And then you come to this country, and on top of all of that stress, they look at you and they're like, you're kind of just like different. You're just kind of different. Like, you just don't get it. And then you try to speak up, or you try to include yourself, and they're like, you just don't understand that this is tradition and this is the way it's always been done. No, that's an excuse. I think it's a horrible excuse. I think it's a laughable excuse. I think anyone that says this is tradition needs to take a step back, check themselves, especially in like a university setting. If you are trying to be more international, if you open your doors to international students, that's saying you are not included in this us and you are an other. And honey, traditions are constructed. Traditions are cultural constructions made by people like us. And the reason why they're traditions is because no one ever questioned them. And also, like a side note, the Netherlands is also still a pretty homophobic country. I've like talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people say they don't feel safe when they walk down the street with their partner. I know a lot of people still get looked at when they don't have a gender expression that fits into their box of female, girl, female, woman, feminine, and male, boy, man, masculine. People still look at me when they see my unshaven legs here, which is something that I expect from Indonesia and Hong Kong, you know, when I visit, because that's exactly where their culture is at, and they're pretty honest about it, and pretty like, yeah, we are pretty sexist. You know, not that we're gonna do anything about it. Whereas here it's like, no, we are progressive and we love equality and this and that, and but it's not. And this is a long story. I don't know what this is, a long rant, but I'm also like happy still because I feel like I can finally talk about this in a semi-cohesive and non-volatile way. I didn't want to put bad energy out when I was still going through the motions a few days ago, but now I've processed everything, and now I understand like what I've been going through and why I'm so confused by the culture that I'm in right now. So I hope this makes sense to you, and it is not like a warning like don't come here. And I really just wanted to like even or level the playing field of my promotion of this country. I think it's important to talk about the fact that there are pros and cons to the place that I live in, and I think people should be aware of that before you move here. You deserve to be made aware of the fact that it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to be a Western imperialist wonderland. So I hope that if you're from here, you feel invited instead of attacked, and invited to join the discussion, and invited to question your surroundings, invited to call out people, because you are in the safest position to call out your fellow Dutch citizens. I hope that this can spark something productive, because I think it's a really important discussion to have. This isn't being hypersensitive, this isn't being a sensitive snowflake, this is, hello, get with the times. It's not okay to do these things anymore. And it's not okay to stay ignorant to what you do and what your culture does, because it's 2019, honey, and we're all here to grow, and we're all here to get more open-minded and progressive and enlightened. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.